Many people are commenting that the BBC is now, very suddenly, China-friendly. And some people believe that this is to do with the recent changes made to US aid and the National Endowment for Democracy. There is no doubt whatsoever that the loss of USA funding will impact on the BBC, but there's also no doubt whatsoever that there is a residual racism built into the BBC. Even as recently as 2 weeks ago, there were reports in the BBC which reflected negatively on China, one of them questioning the appointment of a minister for cities in the UK because she had close ties with China. She doesn't. What Emma Reynolds has said is that China's investment in the UK should be sought and not hampered by regulations that are not necessary. China's not the enemy. So what's really happening? What's going on? Now, as most people who know anything about China and maybe geopolitics are aware, Wang Yi has visited the UK this week. This is apparently on the spur of a moment visit after an invitation last week by David Lammy, whom he met in Beijing in October last year and Munich this year. Now let's put that into perspective. The Foreign Secretary of the UK has not only travelled to China for talks, but so too has the Treasurer, Rachel Reeves. Now, Lammy has invited his opposite number for more talks in the UK. So something is definitely changing. Something is happening in UK politics. China's Global Times, in a frank and honest appraisal of the relationship, said this in October last year, and I quote, "The UK's domestic attitude towards China remains diverse and even contradictory, meaning the foundation for stabilizing bilateral relations is not very solid, judging from the various pressures exerted by British public opinion on London before Lammy's visit. There remain ideological prejudices against China, the China threat narrative and its variants in British society, and even some voices that simply do not wish to see improved China-UK relations. How to withstand these pressures, accurately assess China's UK relations, break free from the severe negative impact of recent years, pan-politicization and pan-securitization, and truly recognize the shared interest and cooperative needs between China and the UK should be a key goal in adjusting UK policy towards China." Wow. I quote these words because they perfectly encapsulate a relationship that has gone badly wrong. But the UK's relationship with China is not the only one that's gone badly wrong. The G7 has a strained relationship with the UK. The EU has pretty much told the UK it can find other markets since Brexit, and it's not offering any favours at all to British traders. The relationship with the USA is strained to breaking point as the UK wanted a free trade agreement with them and instead is facing Trump tariffs. The British government issued a paper just last week called "The UK Foreign Policy in a Changing World," and it acknowledges, as many people have already realised, that the world has changed. Although it suggests it changed faster than expected into a multipolar world. China is one of the poles and the UK now knows that. The document mentions working with China, and this is a refreshing change as the document also points out that the AUKUS relationship between the UK, USA and Australia, and I'm going to quote their exact words here, could appear adversarial towards other nations like China. End of quote. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that a world in which attack submarines are built, equipped and launched with a view to containing China not could, but absolutely must be viewed as adversarial, and now the UK is acknowledging that. A few things will happen as a result of Wang Yi's visit. There will be the public persona, what we see in the media, and there will be what really happens behind closed doors. Associated Press is already reporting the following, quote again, "The meeting came as the UK's centre-left Labour Party government cautiously tries to reset ties with Beijing. Relations turned frosty in recent years over spying allegations, human rights concerns, China's support for Russia in the Ukraine war, and a crackdown on civil liberties in Hong Kong, a former British colony." And reported further that Starmer's office, quote, "reiterated that the UK will always engage frankly which they report as an indication that he raised human rights concerns. Now, not being in the room, it's impossible for me to know for sure, but I'm willing to bet that neither Starmer nor Lammy, or even Rachel Reeves, raised human rights concerns, nor concerns over Hong Kong, because all of these people will know categorically that these are lies from Western media, and in particular the BBC, and they are not true. They are constructs made by the country that the UK should be viewing as adversarial, the USA. What was almost certainly discussed, as was discussed with Rachel Reeves in Beijing last month, is that the UK is in dire need of investment, and China has investment funds that it wants to share with the world. And that world includes the UK. Now, almost certainly there would have been discussions on China building a high-speed rail, something the UK has been trying to build for half a generation and consistently fails at doing. There would have been discussions about whether or not the UK is interested in signing a Memorandum of Understanding for the Belt and Road Initiative, more correctly called One Belt, One Road, 一带一路. Wang Yi, it's been reported in China, also discussed free trade, something that would benefit the UK enormously. And what we can be sure was not discussed was the plight of the Uyghurs. Every person with an open mind and who is not a complete imbecilic, racist, xenophobe already knows that these claims are complete and absolute rubbish. And if the UK does have any residual doubts, they can simply send a diplomat or two into Xinjiang to find out for themselves. The very fact that they've never done so indicates that they already know. And the fact that they haven't admitted it indicates there's still some fear of repercussions from the USA. Hong Kong would not have been discussed either, except in general terms. It's beyond dispute that Hong Kong is still a free, democratic and safe society which follows the rules of law that were for the most part implemented by the British and have been honoured by the Chinese. The only point of contention any person in a position of authority who has been properly briefed and paid attention, something Boris Johnson clearly could not do, they will know that China has adhered strictly to the agreement made between Deng Xiaoping and Margaret Thatcher all those years ago. Now, if anyone in Britain doesn't like that, and we all know there are a few, then there isn't much they can do except crow about it, and they do that loudly enough to cause some resentment that is both ill-founded and incorrect. Britain is a country on the cusp. It's the place of my birth. It's also the place where I grew up. My two children were both born there, and it's the place that I answer when people ask me where I'm from. But it's also, in recent years, been a place I've been ashamed to admit I came from. Britain, and particularly England, has taken some very wrong paths. I saw it happening 40 years ago, and I left the country in 1987. And as it stands right now, I have very little intention of returning. But that can all change. It can change if the UK responds positively to Wang Yi's positivity on the renewed relationship. It can change if the BBC are not funded to misinform, and if the organisation weeds out the inherent racism and returns to proper journalistic standards. It can change if some members of Parliament and some prominent members of the community are told that free speech is okay, your opinions are fine, but hate speech is not. And it can change if the UK government were to treat China with the respect that it deserves after showing the patience and restraint that it's shown. It can change if the UK considers China as a friend and not as an adversary. There is one nation that has proven it cannot honour a single treaty or agreement that it's ever signed. That country has, it's now been proven and admitted by their president, been paying media around the globe to publish lies and misinformation. Mutual trust is never going to be possible when lies are told, perpetuated, or indeed paid for. So the one thing the UK needs to do if they want China's help to rescue their economy, and let's be honest, they need that badly, is to ensure that the lies stop. When the truth is told, mutual respect will grow. When mutual respect thrives, so does friendship. There are no reasons whatsoever why the UK and China can't be friends. There are a few people who would do anything they can to prevent that happening. Some of them are liars, some of them are misinformed, and some are paid misinformers. Now let's hope that they aren't influencing David Lammy, Rachel Reeves, or Sir Keir Starmer, because today, for the first time in a very long time, I actually feel some optimism for the UK. I'm looking forward to see how this develops. Thanks very much for watching, again, my take on China. Please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now.